Well, second only to Johnny Londoff's segment here on the Big 550 KTRS. Kelly Jackson and I both agree that talking to the Missouri Department of Conservation each week
is one of my favorite
is always
segments.
a good time. Erin Schenk joins us, urban wildlife biologist with the Missouri Department of Conservation. Erin, welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, let's talk about deer and cars, because we have to live together on the roads and in the area.
Yep, and this is the time of year, which is why I'm really happy to be here talking on the radio about this topic. This is the time of year that we see a major spike in deer vehicle collisions.
Why?
Because we are coming into the mating season, which is called the rut. So deer are much, much more active than they are throughout the rest of the year, from about October to December, with a real peak in the month of November. So they're just running all over place, crossing more roads, encountering more vehicles. So we probably see about half the number of deer vehicle collisions a year just in these 3 months.
How many accidents do you see?
It's really hard to say precisely, but St. Louis County, we likely see around 300 or so, give or take, 100 each year.
Right.
St. Charles County is not too far behind St. Louis County anymore, and their number of deer vehicle collisions has been increasing over the last 15 years or so.
So how do we avoid hitting a deer?
Awareness is the biggest thing that we can do, and minimizing distractions, really. Of course, that goes with any kind of safe driving tips, but being aware, especially if you're on or driving through an area that's wooded and that you know that deer are out there. So the outer stretches of St. Louis County, especially where deer are dense, Wildwood, Maryland Heights, far South County, far North County, Chesterfield, all those areas. So just be aware and slow down. And then if you see deer on the side of the road, of course, slow down. But if you see one crossing the road and it crosses in front of you, be aware that oftentimes there are other deer following behind. So it's frequently that second or third deer that gets hit, not the first one.
Is it any particular time of day? It seems like early morning when, the sun is just starting to rise, you may see more, or at night. Is that true?
You're exactly right. Mm-hmm. They're what we call a crepuscular species, which is a fun word to say, too, crepuscular.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And so they're most active at dawn and dusk. So that's exactly right. And that's the time that you really need to be aware. They're up and eating then, typically. And so they're going to be foraging for food. And then in addition, you've got these bucks chasing does all over the place.
I've always heard that don't flash your lights at them because they get caught in the headlights. Is that true?
I don't think that helps at all. If anything, it's probably more disorienting to them to have the bright light in their eyes and then have it be total darkness and then the bright light back. And so you don't want to spook them.
I remember my dad put some kind of like a deer type of whistle on my car like 10, 15 years ago in hopes of, not attracting deer. Do those things really work? I mean, I never hit one.
There's no conclusive evidence. Did it make you feel safer?
Well, I was always on the lookout.
She never hit one.
But yeah, I didn't hit one.
Yeah.
I didn't run into any.
So deer whistles, the concept is that as you're driving and the wind passes through the whistle, it makes a silent but high-pitched sound that is irritating to a deer, and so they won't want to cross in front of the car. It's a nice idea, but there's no evidence that they work. And so the concern is, are they counterproductive by making people feel more comfortable and more safe when really they're not any more safe with or without it?
Are we seeing more deer accidents because more deer population and we're building further and further out into their habitat?
Both those reasons.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got, as we build farther and farther out, we actually build prime deer habitat. They love our outer suburban areas where it's meadow-like lawns interspersed with woodlots. That's prime deer habitat. So they do really well. And then in addition, in a lot of communities and throughout some neighborhoods too, we restrict harvest entirely. So there's no hunting going on.
Right.
And there are no natural predators other than humans really left, not major predators
Right.
on the landscape. So.
Yeah. Say, I know I certainly don't want to bring you into the controversy, but it has been very controversial over deer in Town and Country and Chesterfield, and they're ruining my yard. No, they're deer. No, how can you kill Bambi? Leave them alone. I understand that, but what about the deer in the communities? Is it getting any better? Is it getting worse?
It depends on the community, and you don't have to worry about bringing me into that because I'm already into
Okay.
that.
All right, fair enough.
I'm well into that. So it depends on the community. So you mentioned Town and Country, and they've been able to drop their population significantly with management efforts to about half of what it was 8-9 years ago.
And what do they do? Do they do the bow hunting?
They don't.
They do the birth.
They do. They did do some fertility control for 2 years early on, but really what they do is they have a special permit where they bait and use marksmen to harvest deer in large numbers. And then all that meat, I want to note, is donated to Operation Food Surge on the city of Town and Country's dime. So all that resource is going to use as well.
Where would you say is a place that is not managing their deer population, or
Ooh, you're going to have me call somebody out here.
or just a region?
Or where is there a large community with deer population?
Well,
Maybe
most
that's-
of West County, outside of Town and Country, and they're in a tough spot because they're surrounded by Chesterfield and Creve Coeur,
Right.
and unincorporated areas where there's there's dense populations.
I'm out in Cottleville, and I don't see a lot of deer out on Highway N. Why is that? I'm just not looking for it, or I'm driving at the wrong time, or?
There may not be dense populations through there.
Yeah.
Do you see them in your yard?
No, well, I got a
Okay.
small. I don't see them at all.
Okay.
And normally they eat all your flowers, don't they?
Yeah, and
And tomatoes and everything else.
they do. Oh yeah, they're ruminants. They have a chambered stomach like a cow, so they can eat just about any plant material, and they will. I mean, they show preference for some things like your tomatoes and hostas
Right.
over other things.
Meninos.
But
They're always at Menino's Market.
They're always at Meninos getting the baked pies. I don't know what's going on there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So some of these subdivisions that are developed, especially with extensive common ground, these wooded common ground areas, they tend to see their deer populations grow more so than developments that are kind of house to house to house, and most of it is mowed grass.
Yeah. Any studies done that when you give the deer birth control, they're much more promiscuous?
No,
Oh,
have
okay.
not seen any
I'd like to see a
studies
study
about
there.
that.
Aaron Shank is with us with the Department of Conservation here in the state. Thank you for coming in. Good
Thank
stuff.
you very
Thanks,
much.
Aaron.
840